Netflix just released its new comedy improv series, Murderville. The show sets the stage in each episode with a new murder that Detective Terry Seattle, played by Will Arnett, and his celebrity partner for the day must collect clues for and solve. But there's a twist! While the rest of the cast has a sort of script or storyline to follow, our celebrity guest star does not and is left to improv their way into scenes. This leads to some hilarious banter and breaking of character, for better or for worse. Usually I just rate the entirety of a TV show or a movie, but this one's a little bit different. Since each episode of this series has a different star that we're focused on, I'm going to rank and rate each guest star's episode from worst to best and then give it my overall rating at the end. So without further ado, let's go ahead and get started with Annie Murphy, coming in at number 6 and graded at a C. Let me just start off by saying that I have the greatest amount of respect for every single guest star that came on this show because this was a difficult task. Plus, Annie's already proven that she's an absolutely phenomenal actress, and this show does nothing to disprove that. But in her episode, Annie seems to utilize the smile and wave technique. I had a sense in this that she didn't come in with much comfort in improv, and that lingered throughout a majority of her episode. Most of what Annie did in this episode was react with facial expressions and quick responses. Now that doesn't necessarily make this a bad episode at all, I just think that she didn't add as much as she could have. However, I did quite enjoy her work in going undercover with the Pancake Mafia while attempting to hold character the best she could. That was a pretty funny scene. And next up, we have Ken Jeong coming in at number 5 and graded at a C as well. This was actually the episode that I personally was most excited for, and unfortunately was most disappointed with as well. I've enjoyed Ken's performances in the Hangover movies, Community, and of course The Masked Singer. Unfortunately, Ken could not keep his cool for more than 5 seconds in this episode, and it's easy to understand why. With this being the finale episode of the season, the gags set up by the cast and crew were some of the best non-improv scenes in this series. However, Ken failed to add much to this episode because he was dying laughing basically anytime he was on screen and was constantly breaking character. While this can be entertaining from time to time, Ken's laughter stopped him from even speaking most of the time. And you know what? If you went and hit that like button right now, I too would be left speechless. Next up, we have another actor who had a tough time keeping a straight face with Kumail Nanjiani coming in at number 4 and graded at a B+. From this point on in my rankings, I thoroughly enjoyed every single episode and guest star that was on this show. And while Kumail did struggle to keep a straight face, it didn't stop him from adding to the scenes like it did for Ken. In fact, almost every time Kumail broke character, it seemed to add to the humor rather than detract. The biggest thing that took away from this performance for me is that I felt Nanjiani was somewhat unsure of how he wanted to approach the show. At first, he seemed to be more rigid and uptight, possibly because he was nervous. But towards the end, he let loose and became this goofy kind of character. And this goofy improv created probably the best scene in the entire series with his goofy walk and signature sound. The scene that was so funny, it even made Will Arnett break character. But there were a few performances that I found to be even better than this one, the next one being Conan O'Brien at number 3 and graded at an A-. Conan O'Brien was absolutely the best star to have for the first episode of this series. His acting experience and fun-loving attitude made for a great introduction. He held his character for most of the episode, ran with the jokes that were set up, and came up with a few fun ideas and comebacks himself. The only thing that holds this one back for me is that it was the first episode. I just think that future episodes had better setups and storylines over this one, making it difficult to put Conan's episode any higher. But next up, we have Sharon Stone at number 2 and graded at a solid A. Appearing in the 5th episode of this series, Sharon Stone absolutely blew me away with her performance in this show. While I'm not very familiar with much of Stone's previous work, she absolutely proved her acting chops to me in this show. She came onto the set deciding to be a more straight, stern character with a few goofy qualities, and she played it so well. From refusing to hold Terry's sludge to playing with a dead guy's nipple and making him break character, this was an absolutely fantastic showing. She also knew when it was the right time for her to speak and when it was the right time to let someone else speak, which made this a very enjoyable episode. But coming in first place, and I can't believe I'm saying this, but Marshawn Lynch coming in at number 1 and graded at an A+. This was legitimately the episode I was least excited for. I actually thought about skipping it, but man, did Marshawn Lynch bring his A game to the series. In every single scene he was in, you could tell that Marshawn was having the time of his life, which made me as a viewer have a blast watching him. I would have never thought that a retired NFL athlete would have one of my favorite improv performances to date. He ran with every single situation he was put in, came up with some extremely creative and hilarious lines, and just seemed to put fun above everything else. Marshawn, it seems like you have a real talent for this acting thing. Keep it up. But with that, let's move on to my final review of this series. Every episode in this series is different, and they are not all created equal. However, even in the most lackluster episode of this series, I had a ton of fun seeing how the guest stars would react to these different situations. While there were definitely some times where I felt the show dragging and found that the formula became a bit repetitive, the great moments seem to outweigh the dragging ones. Not only that, but I really appreciate Netflix supporting a show that does something that is so different and unique rather than sticking with their usual formulas. Because of how much I love this creativity, I'm going to give Murderville a B+. I was thoroughly entertained by this series and would highly recommend that anyone who enjoys improv or skit shows check it out. Of course, these are just my thoughts, and I would love to hear your thoughts and rankings in the comments down below. If you enjoyed this video, make sure to smash that like button and subscribe for more content like this. But hey, that's all for this one, so I'll catch you next time.